Hello everyone, welcome back to part 2 of Intersections, Mission to Innovate with Prachi Kuan Collins and Tony Moraco in the Spark Studio. In part 1, the discussion had gotten real deep, so I'm going to kick it back to you, Prachi, so we can further our knowledge into strategy and innovations.
Just the other side of some of these organizational structures is, apart from the operations piece, is how do we even optimize innovation? How do we bring those cross-disciplinary teams together and foster that ideation and collaboration? And even keeping in mind, especially for a services organization, that ultimately we want to co-create with our customers, right? So I'm just curious, in your opinion, is there like an ideal one or two, organizational structure that optimizes this innovation process and collaboration, and maybe if you had any advice to provide?
I would say it's more process than structure. I think you have to align your business to optimize your go-to-market strategies or your development. Collaboration, both internal and collectively in the market, I think is facilitated through processes. The tech fellow forums, even the simple brown bag lunches, the technology forums and industry association events in and of themselves, where there's tech talk amongst the market within a certain discipline. I think you have to really expand your network to think about collaboration, to drive that ideation as you talk about, to drive innovation, because so many ideas will, I think, be fostered by some awareness of, hey, what's there? Oh, you just did that. I've got this problem. If I just adapt that, I'm getting closer to my solution, my innovation, technology advancement, because I've learned that you've either done something that I was going to try and it didn't work, or you did something that I can now adapt because you're at a next gen. I'm using the same thing you did before. You've advanced it. If I can leapfrog and take your advancement on top of mine, then I'm moving faster in the marketplace. So I think internal to organizations, the facilitation of the tech talks, the brown bag lunches, the around the common forums that we created within the intranet to bring user groups together. Because those were people that were self-motivated, passionate about it. Those were their interests. We weren't telling someone to go do this. They were seeking that.
They were already there, yeah.
And so if you create that environment inside and the technology forum inside, and then if that forum itself has external network elements that give you a broader view, to me, that process really generates the collaborative aspects of awareness. And we had a lot of meetings, I recall, where folks were curious or actually tried to opt out. And I was kind of adamant, like, you can gain value by listening to someone else's market space or someone else's technology. It may not be directly relevant, but if you're working while you're sitting in the meeting and listening, you can actually get value out of it. So I think it was kind of a forcing function in some cases to have people.
So I guess it's a bit of that mindset shift and being ready and being open to do that.
Yeah, don't be in your own stovepipe. I mean, you're all smart people, but there are other ways to do things, and you're going to go faster learning good and bad by engaging with other people with common interests. And so I think it's a process combined with some structure and investment, because you have to back it up, right? You don't want to just foster this common language, but it doesn't go anywhere. So somehow you have to harvest it through a champion or through the organization, looking into those forums. So you have to create a structure that allows that to come out and get tested, so that it can in fact be looked at as a potential adoption, and then adjust your strategy or your market plans accordingly. But it's a part of that process of expanding your network that I think is critical.
I think it's also so back to the whole behavior cultural aspect of it. I mean, Prachi and I struggle with this. It's that being okay with being uncomfortable, being comfortable with getting out of your comfort zone and not knowing anything about anything. It's kind of like doing this podcast. We didn't really know anything about doing a podcast. We had a lot of ideas and we had a lot of conversations that we were like, we could record this.
I think it's taking that first step. It's just that
inviting others to participate. And we're in organizations that have a lot of very smart people, right? But if you approach it that you're not necessarily the smartest person in the room, and there are other people you can learn from, and you rally around. I mean, I always loved the aspect of bringing folks from different venues, different technology backgrounds, different markets together, because you learn so much. I mean, the lunch and learns and kind of when I did site visits, and those are very motivational on hearing what people were doing. And part of my job was just connecting the dots to say, hey, you guys in Huntsville should talk to the guys in San Diego because there's some common elements here. Or NASA
That's interesting
guys,
that you picked those two sites.
Yeah, well, there's a linkage there, right? But between like NASA and the NRO, right? So there's the accounts need to be able to get exposure, and sometimes management plays a role given their visibility to help connect the dots. And I'm, many times sent messages to, hey, Joe, you need to talk to Sally, and you guys can connect because we have some common interests. Didn't know that, but it's really worth exploring. And then, then the trick is following up and making sure that once you kind of make that link, that if you show further interest, to follow up, a month later, go, did you guys ever talk?
Right.
And when they did, it was great. And it was a guilt trip when they said, no, we hadn't gotten to it yet. So, peer pressure goes a long way sometimes.
Well, especially when you're the CEO asking it.
Well, sometimes. Sometimes a little value add there.
Do you think, I have to ask though, like, do you think that leadership advocacy is maybe one of the topmost levers? Because Kuan and I, we've talked about these structures and the ingredients and the barriers, right? Like, I mean, that's our entire foundational series. Where it comes back to, though, to your point, Tony, earlier, is that there are always resource constraints, right? I mean, without that, you wouldn't even need innovation. If there were unlimited resources to do everything, there is no innovation need. I think I'm really curious to know, like, what are some of those top, maybe 1 or 2 levers that are just an absolute must for this?
I think it is advocacy. And I think, again, I'll go back to the strategy.
Right.
If you can communicate effectively that these are our priorities, the strategy itself should reflect what we do, how we're going to address it in the market, how we're going to create value. And it's value to put back into the organization. And I think, public companies and private value, sometimes takes on some different meanings. But to me, it was always around, if we are successful, it will create more resources internally. And the strategy helps lay out that game plan. And the other thing that's critical to the strategy is a temporal component on time. To your point, you can't do everything at the same time. There are sometimes there's prerequisites in your strategy. You have to get these things right first, right, before we can proceed to the next step. Strategy provides that game plan so that you can keep your enterprise smart people aligned and say, look, we've got to focus on this aspect today. You've got a great idea, but that's like our 2-year plan.
Right.
So we're tabling that idea, because if you say, yes or no without a time element, people go, well, they're not interested in my idea. But that's not true. We like that idea, but we have to do these other things to ensure success in the long run. And that's how strategy plays in. And that's where the leadership advocacy is a critical part, to communicate, yes, we like what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing, and we'll look at that advancement in context of our strategy, because we can only spend $1 once. And what we spent a lot of time doing when we split was we tried to rally those resources together so that you had more dollars, and not everybody had, $100 or let's say $100,000 R&D project, but there were a couple $1 million concepts to get those to maturity level so we could move to the next.
Right.
And that was a critical component to create scale through that advocacy, to back up the interest with actual resources in people and dollars to allow that to advance. And the strategy, again, pointed to, this is now part of this year's plan, and we're going to move this technology and then advance it. And you other participants can play a role in that, in the next generation. That's the way to make that. And if you take pause at the moment that there is success and celebrate execution of the strategy, we always try to create some simple key performance indicators that it goes, are we performing against our strategy? It was a board level question. Well, yeah, we have proof points that we wanted to move in this direction with new accounts or new capability. And here are proof points that we now have a portfolio of this technology, or we have new pipeline opportunities with a new account set. So proof points and celebrating those are huge upside. Again, back to that leadership advocacy. A little recognition goes a long way.
It does.
That could be just a pat on the back. Doesn't have to be huge money, just recognition, at the company forums, emails, phone calls. When I called people, they kind of freaked out because people weren't using the phones anymore. Usually it was a good thing, and but they were happy to hear from me, and they kind of took, I think, some recognition and some pride in the fact that we were actually watching what was going on, and that they were actually providing value and contributing the overall strategy of the business.
That's great advice, Tony, about recognition and celebration. I think we run too fast and then we don't pause to do some of that. So
exactly, we're so focused on solving problems all the time. We spend 80% of our time talking about what's broken, and not as much time about what's working. And I think if that model gets balanced better at any level, in any size organization, I think you'll see the cultures are much more responsive to and positive when in fact there's this common alignment around success. Because it's hard. There's a lot of hard work going on, but celebrating more than we did, I wish we had done more of it.
Well, we can take that advice forward for sure. So we're going to wrap with a couple of fun questions. We've been a lot of like heavy questions. So I don't know, well, I'm sure you remember, but one of the leadership summits we had the pleasure of attending with you talked about the different faces of Tony. And it was like your picture on an email. And if it was a happy Tony, that was a good thing. If it was a serious Tony, we had to pay attention because we probably screwed something up. And we were wondering about your retirement. And we wanted to hear how that was going. And what was a day in the life of retired Tony? And if we were going to receive an email from a retired Tony, what would the face look like and what would the topic be?
Okay. I do remember lots of pictures. I will say that I was not one being in the intelligence community. I was pretty much wanted to be off the grid. So my picture and video was taken so many more times than I ever desired as the CEO, but it was part of the job. But it was fun to do. But to your point, we had a lot of fun with that. And the pictures were around the successes, like you said, casual things that you could share a lighthearted communication with staff. And then there were the serious pictures, ethics and things that we wanted to make sure that people took seriously, and we did not want to have a jolly
violation.
Yeah, in a picture. So yeah, it's all part of communication, right? And the visuals play a role. I'd say the pictures today would include more family.
Oh, that's nice.
So, and I think that mostly no jackets, no ties, and mostly golf attire. And I think that the pictures themselves would have a backdrop of a golf course. If on 80% of the pictures that I probably have in the last 3 years. So I've been playing a lot of golf, been outside a lot, and enjoyed a lot of time with family that I had missed over a long period of time.
That sounds wonderful.
What's your favorite golf course?
That's a hard one. I just came back from Ireland, in fact. So I have a new set, but Old Head in Ireland is a famous coastal cliff, and we had a beautiful weather there. So Old Head, I'd say, would be near the top. And
oh, that sounds wonderful.
That's really good.
Yeah, the best thing about golf is you're outside in manicured places and the scenery, and so it's a great sport that's very social, and I really enjoyed meeting a lot of people and playing golf with my family, and spent a lot more time with them than I had as working.
That's awesome.
We missed a lot of younger kids. My kids are now in their late 20s, 30s, so different phase, but all like a lot of fun. So we've enjoyed time together. So that's my current album would be family and golf, I guess, would be the.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I want to get that email. That's
right. Well, Tony, I have to say this has been an amazing and inspirational conversation, certainly for Kuan and I, and will be for our listeners. And I have to say, as we sort of start closing this, I have to say that, the more I talk to the younger generation, and you started talking about multi-generational problems too, I'm very inspired by many of them. I continue to think that I hear a lot of passion all the time. Many times I see clarity around purpose and what they want to do. I don't think I had that kind of clarity when I was younger. So ultimately, I feel that whoever you are and whatever your journey might be, at some point, you kind of realize that, look, this is all about just imagining a better world and then doing your bit, right, to make the world a little better. Right. So as we close out, Tony, we would love to hear what might be your advice to young professionals and those who are aspiring to change the world.
Yeah, I think you hit it with passion. I think you have to think about things that you care about deeply. And that, I think, gives a huge motivation to drive you to take action, because it's fundamental, right? You're motivated in your own mind to get to some outcome. I think some of the challenges are, how do you make a contribution? And I think there are ways to do that at different levels. And I think, as others have talked about, kind of start small. Think about what you can do in your local community, in your local company, participate and be active, and not stay on the sideline. And I think, unfortunately, given the world today and post-COVID, I hope we get back to the ability so that people can engage more directly. There's some value, obviously, in this interaction in this forum, because you can see people you wouldn't normally see. But at the same time, seeking out through your own self-motivation, the passions that you have, and finding like-minded individuals that you can partner with, right? Because doing something alone, collecting litter in the woods by yourself is fun and interesting and maybe rewarding. But if you're doing that with 200 people along the shoreline, I think that's a much more rewarding aspect if you're motivated around some kind of climate or other controls. So it's passion, and I think it's exposure to a diverse set of folks from different backgrounds who share the same maybe ideas, but have different experiences that you will learn from. And then it'll just be more rewarding as a result, because you'll get perspective from them that you can take away for that particular activity, or you'll take that to other parts of your life, whether in business or personal. So it's a exposure, teaming with people, and teaming with those that have diverse backgrounds and environments and areas that you are passionate about. Creates that self-motivation, I think, to drive an outcome that folks collectively will get to a better place.
Well, that is our last question, and I think that's a wrap. We're so grateful, Tony, for your time.
Thank you.
We want to get you back to the golf course, or your family, or whoever. I hope this was, fun for you. It was definitely
very
fun for us.
Thank you very much.
What a great 2-part series. Stay tuned for more episodes on the way. Make sure to stay connected by subscribing to our channel and following us on all socials at UAH, I2C, and Samaya Studios on LinkedIn. Bye, everyone.